Good evening, friends and family, and thank you for coming to another night with Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities podcast behind Black business. And we have another very special guest tonight, and this is Chef Tsadakeeyah. I want to thank you so much for coming. I had a hard time getting this man because he is a very busy. And so I want to thank you so much for taking time to come and be on our podcast tonight.
Well, this is my pleasure. We go way back, so I
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, family, as you know, we're a nonprofit organization, and we're here to uplift our businesses, our Black businesses in our community. We're here to increase the awareness and support of our Black businesses because they help us circulate those dollars in our community. They play a big role, an integral part in our community. They hire people from our community. They do business with other Black businesses in our community. Provide other entrepreneurial opportunities. They provide services to people in our community. They support causes and definitely serve as role models for individuals in our communities. And so that's why our Black businesses are so important. And we have had over 70 podcasts here at Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities because it was becoming apparent that we had so many businesses and business corridors. And I think really we just don't know or realize the gems that we have here in Chicago. And so that's why we added this piece to our organization with the podcast. We're also working to help businesses in other ways. We've helped some businesses get their websites set up. We've tried to work hard to help some businesses keep their doors open. We've had events for businesses this summer. We had 6 events, to try to help with our bookstores in Chicago. And our bookstores are a big component of our organization because we really know how important it is for our community to be reading. We once had 22 Black bookstores. We were down to 2, and now I think we're back up to 9. And I believe Chicago can be boasted as having the most bookstores of all of the cities, the most Black bookstores of all of the cities. So Chicago is always popping. We're always on that cutting edge. And so Chicago is a wonderful city. I think that's why so many people come here. With our bookstores, we have a book giveaway every month. Last month, Afriware was our bookstore of the month. We feature a bookstore on our website every month. So it was Afriware, and we gave away a book, Dick Gregory's book, Dick Gregory's Natural Diet for Folks Who Eat Cooking with Mother Nature. The winner was announced as Amy Hyman. And Amy, we have sent you an email to send you this book. We send you this book at our cost. Because that's how important it is to support our bookstores and to get our literature out here. So Amy, if you could please get in touch with us. If we do not hear from you next Wednesday, then we will have to choose another subscriber for winning the book. This month, Brother Yoel at Underground Bookstore is our featured bookstore of the month. And Brother Yoel has selected a 4-pack book by Robert Greene. And he's author of 4 books, 48 Laws of Power, Art of Seduction, Concise Laws of Human Nature, Concise Laws of Mastery. You, as a subscriber at Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities, have an opportunity to win that whole package of all 4 books. He's an author of Strategy, Power, and Seduction. And he tells about the world of the corporations and how they operate. So that's what these books are about. So if you go to rrgbc.org and you subscribe, you will have an opportunity to win that 4-package book. Awesome package that Brother Yoel felt was important. Brother Yoel had at Underground Bookstore. He's been there for almost 30 years. He's located at 1727 East 87th Street. And you can go to undergroundbookstore.com to support him. The other area that we are focused on with our bookstores is we want our local libraries and our local schools to give contracts to our local bookstores. This happens in other municipalities, so this is not something that we're asking that is out of the box. It's something that is happening, and it's something that we feel should be happening. So we're asking you to go to change.org, save Black bookstores in Chicago, and sign our petition. This is something else that we are working on. And then lastly, we support our Black financial institutions, the Southside Community Federal Credit Union, which is located on East Garfield and Wentworth. They've been around for over 20 years, providing financial literacy to the community, providing loans for mortgages and cars and personal loans. And the way they make money is by you doing business with them and by you opening up accounts. This is how they create dollars. So we have to support our institutions. And so we ask that you support the Outside Community Federal Credit Union. So tonight, let's get with our guest, Brother Tsadakeeyah. And I was hoping that your wife, how do you say her name again? I don't want to say it incorrectly. Nasia. Okay. We were hoping that she would be on with you, but it's just you tonight. So, and you have plenty to talk about. Like you said earlier, we go way back with Soul Vegetarian. My daughter, who is 32, I don't think she was born yet when I started coming to the restaurant. And I remember you were a very young chef at that restaurant. I'd come in every day. I wanted the ice cream, and the food was just delicious. You know, it was hard being a vegan at the time because you didn't have as many restaurants and you didn't have as many dishes. And just coming there, all the food, the cornbread, the greens, the everything, the gathering of people. I met so many friends at that restaurant that I'm still friends with. And so that's where I met you. And so you have a long history here in Chicago in terms of vegan foods. So what I want you to do is to start out letting people know something a little bit about your history and where you're from and how you got into this whole restaurant business. What inspired you?
Well, I have to say that I'm fortunate to have had parents that were health conscious, and my father never brought pork into our household. We were raised as in the Seventh Day Adventist philosophy. And we were, you know, I grew up on a small farm in northern Wisconsin, 100 miles right at the upper Michigan border. We had 40 acres, no mule. But you know, my father had 16 children, so food was always front and center. And
Wow.
I think for me, being inspired by him, he didn't cook every day, but on the weekends he would make this huge batch of whole wheat bread and buns and such, and he would make this stew. And somehow when we go fishing, I would be the one to clean and cook the fish. I mean, I could barely look over the stove sometimes, and but that's how, you know, I started early, and he certainly influenced me. And I moved to Baltimore in 1981,
Hmm.
and you know, it's kind of a departure. I didn't know that, you know, Black folks really ate hog maws and chitlins, and I really thought that it was, you know, I really thought that that was just theater for TV. I didn't really folks that really ate that stuff, because that's not how I was raised. I thought it was just like jokes they made on TV. And walking through a market, and I saw, you know, whole pig heads and the tongue
Hmm.
and chitlins. I was like, people really eat this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Wow.
so anyway, so you know, I was part of the Hebrew Israelite community, as you mentioned. I began professionally at Soul Vegetarian, um, and went to Atlanta, helped that restaurant to grow, and was transferred here to Chicago. And for me, so cooking was always just a pathway
Mhm.
of something that I knew that it was a skill that I developed. You know, in being in the community and wanting to offer foods to the community that would nourish and heal. You know,
So now you started out, you grew up as a 7-day Adventist.
yes.
Are 7-day Adventists vegans or vegetarians, or
Uh,
what is your diet?
it's, they recommend that you're at least vegetarian. Um, I want to say that 40-50% of the congregation are plant-based.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that is definitely pushed. You know, they push healthy living through a plant-based lifestyle and self-sufficiency, and, you know, having, you know, growing your own food as much as possible and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, so I certainly credit that philosophy for shaping me and, you know, putting me on a path to for health and wellness.
So
Yeah.
what made you go vegan?
So, um, my older brother had at the time was living in Baltimore and was part of the Hebrew Israelite community, and I came to visit him and just got caught up and was like, you know, just hearing the teachings and the doctrine. It was like it was a lifestyle that made sense to me, and
Mm-hmm.
so I became committed to the community and did so for 15 years. You know, under the guidance of Ben Ami and Prince Asio.
Okay.
And, you know, ultimately, I did move on, but it certainly implanted a lot of things in me about discipline and spirituality and community service, and these are all things that have shaped me to do what I do now. So
Okay. Okay. So you became a chef, and that's a specialty, and I'm saying that because I've watched you grow over the years, and I would definitely call you a chef, because
thank you.
I've seen what you can do with food, and I've seen what you can do with presentation, and I've seen you work in different establishments, and so um, being a chef, what would you say are some of the qualities that are needed to
Mhm.
becoming a chef? Because there's a lot of cooks out here, a lot of people that can cook, or they open up restaurants or whatever. But I would separate. We'll separate the two.
Yeah. No, I think the qualities of being a chef are I think at the heart of it is being an organizer, right? And being able to um, take resources whether it's people or food products, and organize it in a way that is appealing to the general public. And I think in my case, a lot of what I offer, now at Majani, are things that I learned to like appreciate myself, and then we offer to the public. I didn't take the typical pathway to being a chef. I mean, I'm a self-taught chef. I didn't study under or go to school for. I mean, a lot of what I've learned has just been research and trial and error. But I think to be a chef, you accept a lot of trial and error, which is a lot of failure. And it takes you 500 times to perfect one dish sometimes.
Sure.
So also, when you become a chef, you know how to organize people. I know how to organize product and do it in an efficient manner. So that's at the heart of it. So it takes a lot of patience, endurance, and stamina. Wow.
Now, I remember, and this was a little conversation we had not too long ago where I was talking to you about, owning a restaurant and all the hard work and how you and your wife came together, and how you chose her, you knew that you would be a good. Tell the audience about that, because I thought that was such a sweet.
Well, my wife and I, we've been together for 17 years. Officially married for 5 years, knocking on 6 years. When we first met, we met online, and I had been on a dating site. And she was like I had spent like a summer meeting folks, and I was like, okay, that's enough. And I was like, she's the last person I'm gonna meet. And we kind of struck it off. And so this is our second or third date. I was I was still working from home at the time. And I'm on the second floor. It's in the middle of summer. It is blazing hot. And I said, well, this will see what kind of stamina she has. So I invited her by to help me with this catering order, and it was hot. And I'm sweating buckets, and she worked with me side by side, and she never once complained, and she didn't, curse me out. And so it was at that moment when we finished, and she was exhausted and drenched in sweat, and I was like, now this is a woman that I can keep. This is a woman that I know can handle that kind of pressure. And she was, at the time, she was definitely afraid of knives, which made it even more impressive.
Oh my goodness! Now, was she into food preparation, or she was just helping you out?
She was not into food preparation. No. I pulled out my chef's knife. I thought she was gonna pass out. And so she was not into food prepping. She was actually in healthcare at the time. And as time went on, it kind of revealed that she was interested in pastry and baking, and I encouraged her, and she she went to school. She went to Washburn and got her associate's degree in pastry and baking, and excelled, and now makes the best vegan desserts I've ever had. I mean, so we made a perfect pairing. She does all the desserts, and I can do everything else. And so that was she was definitely the perfect one for me. I mean, in so many ways, but the culinary part is icing.
So what are some of her desserts, her pastries that she makes?
She makes all kind of cakes, pound cake, carrot cake, German chocolate, double chocolate, and salmon cupcakes, sweet potato cookies. She can make meringues, lemon meringue pie, and brownies, and tarts and all kind of stuff. You name it, she knows how to make it. And she can make breads and all kind of stuff that a lot of people we don't even serve at the restaurant, but she knows, she's been trained. She knows how to do it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Those sweet potato cookies, they're really good. And
Oh, yeah.
it makes me think about my grandmother. My grandmother used to make fried sweet potato pies.
Mm,
Yeah, and that's what I
yeah.
think about. When I saw the cookie, I said, sweet potato cookies. Wow, this is really cool. Yeah, very tasty.
Yeah.
I think her pastries are wonderful. Now, you
Yeah.
have had a lot of business ventures. You started out as Soul Vegetarian, and I know the cooking that you did there. You guys had the best greens and cornbread. I don't know how you did that cornbread. You had the best greens and cornbread. And
Thank you.
then you went off into catering and meal deliveries. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I was at Soul Vegetarian 7 years, and when I left Soul Vegetarian, I just it was my wife at the time, my wife before, Chef Tsadakeeyah. I don't even know how she got my number. One night we were sitting at the dinner table, and a lady called me. And she said, I have this client that has muscular dystrophy, and I want to know, would you be interested in preparing meals? And I was like, okay, sure. I mean, I cook for my family, and so I have to make an extra plate, and get paid to do so. I can do that. Shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And so one client ultimately turned into 40 clients, and so
Wow.
I did that for several years until I outgrew my home kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
and a friend of mine offered to invest in my fledgling company and open up a commercial kitchen to do it. And as it turned out, the place that I found, this was the place that when we were on 111th Street, had a restaurant also. And so we ended up being there, and we ended up doing the restaurant and the meal service. There we were there for 3 years.
So were you primarily doing events for people, or were you preparing meals for individuals?
So we still had 30, 40 clients. So, a typical day for me was get up at 3 o'clock, meditate for a couple hours, get to the restaurant at 5, prepare the food for the restaurant, work the line, be there till 9 o'clock, go work out, come back, do the meals for the clients twice a week, and leave there at midnight on twice a week, and get 3-4 hours of sleep and do it all over again. I did that for several years. So I made the food for the restaurant and for our clients. So that was quite a grind.
Okay. So were your clients were you dealing with people that had health issues at all? Were you dealing with that?
We had some clients that had health issues, or they just, these are folks that just wanted the convenience of a healthy meal, and so. But most of our clients were just, they just wanted the convenience of a plant-based meal without having to. Yeah, so we would make it and deliver it. We had folks all over the city, Northwest Indiana, South Suburb. So yeah.
Okay. Now your next venture was when you went to Vegetarian Gourmet that was in Mount Greenwood, and
Yes.
that was a lovely restaurant that you had, and I used to bring it was be myself, my daughter, my mother, and my grandmother would come to the restaurant.
Yes.
And they love the food. You had a buffet. You had a harp player, on certain nights.
Yes. Yes.
And so tell us about that restaurant. That was
it was quite a unique place. I think for us also being an African American owned business in Mount Greenwood. So a lot of folks may not know the history, but it's primarily police and firefighters. Most of the community doesn't look like us, and but we found this place, and it was had been a French restaurant, so it had this coziness about it, and it just fit well for what we were doing, and overall we were received by the community, and we had folks that were coming from all over the South Side, and
people were coming from everywhere.
People were coming from everywhere. That restaurant really it did well. It did well. I think our downfall was that we had expanded it to the place next door. I think we did that a little too quickly, and it diluted us, and so that's learning curve for us. But
next door you had pizza.
We had pizza.
We had ice cream.
Ice cream.
The pizzas were great.
Yep. We enjoyed doing that. It was a good experience. It was my first time owning a restaurant, so it just really was my own kind of learning curve. I'd say being there, trying to do everything, by myself was a challenge.
Absolutely.
That's why I appreciate that partner. Yeah. Absolutely,
and that's what's so wonderful about you, and your wife coming together and being able to work together.
Yes.
To make it
Makes
happen.
A big difference.
You got somebody in your corner, you got somebody backing you up, and you all are both on the same path. So that's what they call powerhouse couple.
Powerhouse couple, yeah. It makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely. So after that, I know you went to Karen's, because Karen Calabrese, she initially had a raw food restaurant, and then she opened up Karen's Cooked.
Yes, so I've known Karen since for a long time. I'm probably one of the first people I met when I came to Chicago, and when she was still selling wheatgrass, from a little small place up on Lincoln Avenue. We were one of the first people to take her product, and so we became good friends. Karen's like my big sister, and so after we closed, she reached out and said, "Hey, I have this project. I want to do another restaurant. Mostly she's known for her raw foods, as you mentioned, and so she wanted to do something cooked, and so she asked me if I wanted to be the chef for the project, and I said, yeah." So we set out to do that, and I was there for just a little over a year, and helped get that off the ground. And
you created a pretty interesting menu.
Yeah. Some things we brought from Vegetarian Gourmet, but some things that we created that were new and different, and so it was well received in the downtown area. So that I think that what we do, the experience that we bring, shows that you can be creative with plant-based, and this was well before. I mean, at the time there was only maybe 2 or 3 other vegan restaurants in the city. Now there's over 30.
Oh, I can't believe how many vegan restaurants there are in Chicago.
I mean, so it's just this was something when we were still, feel kind of like, Moses crying out to the people, "Hey, change your diet." But so it was I think anytime that you can get people, I think one of the things that I remember most from that restaurant was it was a customer came in, he said, it's easy to make food taste good if you're using eggs and butter and sugar and all this kind of stuff. And he said, but you have managed to make food taste good using olive oil and herbs and spices, and that was one of the best compliments I thought I ever received. And,
Absolutely.
So
I had many birthday parties there. I invited people. people who were not vegans at all, but always enjoyed the food.
Yeah.
And
Good.
that's really what was important, because when I became a vegan, um, back in the 70s, um, there weren't that many restaurants.
Right.
And there were some recipe books out. I think my first book was 10 Talents.
10 talent.
Yeah, 10 Talents. They had the beans,
Back easy.
and you would follow the recipe and the food. You learn to appreciate or eat for nutrition, not
Right.
necessarily
Right.
not necessarily for taste. Yeah, it became a consciousness and a psychological, mental thing you had to go through. But you wanted to eat this plant-based food, and you knew that it was better for you. And so, it might not have been as tasty, but that was one of the great things about Soul Vegetarian,
Right.
is that you had all these dishes and the food tasted good.
Right. Yeah, look at you. You're a testament to what eating healthy does. You look amazing. Your skin is glowing. You know, I'm not even gonna begin. I don't know how old you are. If but you look
I'm not
amazing.
telling. Huh?
You see, you're not telling.
No, I'm not telling.
No. But you look. You're a testament to what a good diet does for the body. It certainly slows the aging process and keeps us looking youthful.
And I think even more so, it enhances your quality of life, you know,
Absolutely.
at least while you're here, you're feeling well, you're feeling better. You're not sick. When you're sick, it's hard to do things,
Yeah.
life is harder. And
Yeah.
so at least you're feeling well. That's the important thing. So whatever it is that you're trying to do, even what you're doing, I know, just from a little experience, I helped Zado do a catering. Zado, I helped him do a catering, a couple of catering events. It's a lot of work.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of work. And so
Yeah.
you have to have a passion,
Yeah.
and you have to be, I listen to you talk about what time you go to bed, what time you get up, and you meditating, and you have to keep yourself together to do this work.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. That's it certainly takes a discipline and taking care of yourself in order to do it for this long and still have your health and your sanity.
Sure. Okay. So the next venture, I understand you were dealing with Blacks and Green. Now I know Blacks and Green is about when I met, was first introduced to that program or that business. They were dealing with recycling.
Mhm.
So how did you manage to get involved with Blacks and Green?
So when we were actually working on a project on 51st Street with Bernard Lloyd, and we were working to create a restaurant. The goal was to create a restaurant row on 51st Street between King Drive and State Street. So there was a project at 51st and Calumet that wanted to bring several restaurants together that were all Black owned, that could showcase to the community a variety of different styles. And so one of the premises was to be as sustainable as possible. And so that's where I was introduced to Naomi Davis and Blacks and Greens, and we became their official chef for any time they had an event. We catered the event. But it was the first time that I really started to focus on local understanding local, the importance of shopping local. Because as a chef, oftentimes I would just pick up the phone and call my supplier and say, "Hey, I need a case of broccoli." Like, you never gave me thought to where it came from or whatever.
Okay.
And so this is when I really began to focus on just understanding the importance of local um, and the vulnerability of not being local, because in Illinois, for example, 85% of all the produce that we consume comes from outside the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there was an issue of supply chain for whatever reason, we are still vulnerable to shortages. So because most of you see farm fields and such in Illinois, but most of that is grain that is shipped off to China and other parts of the world to feed cattle. So, but when it comes to feeding humans here locally, we are at a deficit. So these are some of the things that we began to learn, and talking with Naomi Davis and really made me more aware of how to fashion a business as sustainable. And so that was a good experience. What came out of that was building a community garden, the Brownsville Community Garden at 51st and Calumet. We had 12 raised beds that we were able to grow produce using some of the local residents. But one of the things that was unique about that space was having a cooking pavilion right in the middle of the garden. And so we were able to take produce that we grew and make items in the garden. Like, we grew collard greens, we made collard greens, and we could make baked cornbread right in the garden.
Okay.
And made pizza using some of the fresh herbs and stuff from the garden, and invite the community and have these gatherings using some of the produce that we grew. And it was we were able to disseminate a lot of information and inspire folks through that program. So we were very proud of that. We actually won an award from the mayor's office, beat out some stiff competition to because of that project. So
wow. And so that also led you to Black Oaks, which I'm quite familiar with. Dr. Ifunsa Wright and Fred, who have made great sacrifices
yes,
building that farm out in Pembroke, and there's some other Black farmers out there. So you have some affiliation with them as well, right?
Yeah, and so we I've known Dr. Jafunza. She was actually my physician for quite a few years. When I had my first restaurant on 111th Street, her office was right up the street. So
right down the street.
Yeah. So when they did the Black Oaks project, I actually built the outdoor kitchen there, and so we have an outdoor kitchen there, and we whenever they have gatherings out there, we'll oftentimes we'll cater the event, or we'll try to cook some things out there at that kitchen. It was actually my first one, so it wasn't as developed as the one in Brownsville. But
so
it was,
you actually designed the kitchen that outdoor kitchen that they have there in
yeah. We pulled some things together and made it work.
Okay.
I think the first event that we hosted out there was the staff from Betty Shabazz charter school. We had a gathering out there. We cooked on some food out there. Used some of the farmers from Basso and such. Used some of their produce. So that was a good experience.
So have you been able to use the local produce at the restaurant, like from Brownsville, Black Oaks, or maybe some of the other local? Because there are a lot of farmers. There's a lot of farming going on here in Chicago.
Yeah, we have. It's kind of over the years. There are some farmers that we've been able to use that. Right now, we we still do use black oaks somewhat. There's a farm called Mother Car Farms that's in Glenwood that we are currently getting our greens from them. We use Growing Power with Erica Allen and her team. So that's a relationship that's that is ongoing. We've had other farmers over the years. There are challenges and there's pros and cons. Sometimes you have to be adaptable to use what they have available, because sometimes aphids or bugs or something can have an impact on what they can offer, or the climate. If it's rainy or if it's dry, they can say, oh, I have a bunch of this, or I don't have any of that. So you have to be adaptable when you rely on local farmers. So but when it's good, it's great, and so we try
And
to.
so for the most part, has it been working for you?
You use it to supplement what you do. Like it's sometimes it's not enough,
Okay.
or consistent enough to like to do that 100%. So we have kind of base products that we'll use from local produce suppliers, and then we supplement it with some of the local farmers. But I think our goal is there's more things that are coming, having a central clearinghouse where we know exactly what's available. These are all things that are coming that will make it easier in the 2023 season for us to use that even more. And our goal is to create more avenues. During COVID, we had to simplify our menu so we weren't as diverse in some of the things that we offered. So now that we're kind of getting through all that stuff, we're able to we'll be able to in the 2023 season use those farmers even more.
Okay. So you mentioned already the Bronzeville Community Garden. You've already talked about them, and then there's the Chicago Botanical Garden. Which is a beautiful facility.
Yes.
So what are you doing out there?
So we've had a partnership with them. I think that came out of the Naomi Davis connections, and we've taught cooking classes at the Chicago Botanic Garden. And as you mentioned, it's a beautiful facility, and they have this really cool cooking pavilion where they invite chefs to come in from around the city.
Oh, they have a huge pavilion for food now.
Yeah. And so I've been out there a couple of times to teach classes. So we're supposed to do it in the last time we were scheduled to do it was in 2020. So we haven't. We'll see how things go in 2023. But it's always nice to go out there and showcase what you can do. So yeah. So
now I know I know at one point Soul Vegetarian would do a lot of, but not a lot, but they would often do cooking classes. So is that something that you're doing a lot of now? Is the cooking classes?
I have not done cooking classes as much. You probably mentioned it, but I'll mention it now. The last garden that I've helped to sponsor is the South Merrill Community Garden, and that's at 70th and Merrill. At the time, I was actually living on Merrill, so I'd walk past this spot and I'd see some folks trying to organize this garden. So eventually, I jumped in and was like, "Let me help." And so we worked to kind of reorganize it. And one of the things that we did, which is always my assistance, is build a cooking pavilion in the garden. So this one we did out of brick, and I was able to utilize some of the skills. My father was a bricklayer, so I know about that. But this one is by far the best looking one. Okay. And so it is more adaptable for doing cooking demonstrations in the garden. So we'll do some programming this year. We've done some classes for youth in the past. We've made pizza and stuff with things that we grew from the garden. So, otherwise, doing cooking classes, oftentimes it's like taking this, especially if you're doing it on location, it's bringing a lot of products, setting it up, doing it, and then packing. And I think part of that was like, I'm kind of done with that part of it. So that's why at 7269, which is right up the street from our current restaurant, we're building a studio that will allow us to do these things and stream it,
Okay.
like we are now, and have a channel that can showcase folks how we do our greens, and just be more creative about foods that can entice our community to eat produce, to eat vegetables, so that we can have better health outcomes. So cooking demonstrations are important to me. It's just doing it in a way that makes it easier for this aging man to do it.
Well, I think cooking classes are so important because people are not cooking. People are not able to take advantage of, like myself, I had grandmothers and great grandmothers that did a lot of cooking. So you watched and you helped, and everybody is so busy, and they're not getting into cooking like they should. And so I think it's important.
It is important, and I think that we have to, if we're gonna have better health outcomes, we have to have less reliance on folks that don't necessarily have your best health interests at heart. And as a chef, it's our responsibility to not just prepare foods that taste good, but that are healthy and are digestible and all this kind of stuff. And so understanding food combinations, is just understanding food combinations and eating foods that are in season. These are all things that we have to kind of reiterate to our community, so that we understand the best ways to maximize our health through proper nourishment and eating. So
okay, and so now there's also Centers for New Horizon. What's going on there, and where are they located?
These are projects that we took on. All these are things that kind of led up to where we are now. When we worked with the Centers for New Horizon, we were kind of out of our comfort zone a little bit on that one. We created a natural play space for the 43rd and Cottage Grove. So when you drive by 43rd and Cottage Grove, we redid the playground and created different herbs and plants that highlighted sensory learning. So there's things like lamb's wool, lamb's quarter, that is really soft, and so when the kids walk by and they touch that, they'll feel that, versus other plants and herbs that are there. And utilize my amateur carpentry skills to create that space, and it's still there, still flourishing. So and then we did a couple of their spaces, and one of them we had really small earth oven. We created an earth oven that we could make small dishes and offer it to the kids. So these are all things that we kind of did. Our goal is to try to engage the community around issues of healthy eating, and we've done it with Centers for New Horizon. We've been on street corners making product and passing it out to folks, and because we're just trying to inspire them to think differently about how they're eating, and that eating a meatless meal doesn't have to be bland or boring. And so wherever we had the opportunity to spread that gospel, we did it. And on a Sunday morning, or in the middle of the day, or in someone's garden, or in someone's classroom, we were committed to spreading that word.
And see, what's so beautiful about all of these projects that you've been involved in, it just shows what an integral part a business can play in a community. A restaurant doesn't have to be just a restaurant. Any establishment has the opportunity, if you are willing to put in the time to, do more, to expand. Every area has that opportunity to expand. And you have been doing that, so you really I'm very, very proud of the work that you have been doing. You are a very wonderful addition to our community. And
Thank
so
you.
I really appreciate all this work that you've done,
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
all the lives that you have touched. And I've been told that running a restaurant, is very difficult. A lot of restaurants don't last, past a year. Um, what is the key? Would you say are some of the keys to success for running a restaurant and keeping a restaurant open? I have some of my own ideas, but I would like to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think in our case, some of the things that we've talked about, the work that we've done with Black Oaks, with Centers for New Horizon, these are all relationships that were built and cultivated and executed with other organizations that have committed to serving the community. And I think, going into Majani, we built a strong foundation. Like our roots go deep in the community, and we have a reputation for a solid product, for a fair pricing, and reputation for treating people, right. And I think so when we opened up Majani, like it was almost overwhelming. A lot of restaurants, they have to kind of ramp up to bring folks in. We start off like gangbusters,
Yeah.
and we're busy for the first 3 years in a way that I, was very grateful for, but really was almost overwhelming. But I think for us, as I think the keys for us was just was the grassroots. It was more of a grassroots movement, and that we chose to set up shop in the community. Like we could have been anywhere in the city, and felt like I felt like we could have gone anywhere in the city and been successful. But we wanted to open up. We opened up Majani because it was frustrating for me to have to, every time we wanted to have a healthy sit down meal, we had to leave out of the neighborhood. I mean, and sometimes I love to cook, but you want to experience other cultures and venues, but there's none on the South Side. And
Sure.
and so we were like, we have to build this here so folks can understand and appreciate what it was. I think the straw that broke the camel's back was we drove all the way to Division Street one day because we had heard about a restaurant that had opened up and had plant-based options, and we drove over there. We were like excited, and the food was not good.
Okay.
And it was like at that moment, it was like, this is it. We are going to build a restaurant in our community that shows what plant-based food should be like, and that was the pivotal moment for us, because at the time we were catering, and that was comfortable, but it wasn't enough for what we knew and what we wanted to offer for the community. So all those things kind of blended.
People want that. I remember sitting in a Zoom meeting with the alderman, Leslie Harrison over there, and that was some of the things that people said. We want a restaurant to go to in the neighborhood,
Right.
and this was before you opened up over there.
Yeah.
People said we want places in our neighborhoods, that we can walk to and frequent.
Absolutely. So, our mission is kind of layered in that we want other restaurants to come. Like, we're not worried about the competition. Like, we want to see other restaurants come. We know that another 10 restaurants could come in the neighborhood and they could all thrive.
That's right.
Just based on
people
our
are
own,
gonna eat.
based on our own research. Absolutely.
Sure.
And so, just a place where you can go. Like, at the time there was only one other restaurant that you could go and sit down and eat, and that's just crazy.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Well, we're very happy to have you, and you're doing great work. What does Majani mean?
Majani is a Swahili word that means green. So, for us, it was green as in the green cuisine and supporting local farmers. And when you go in, you see a lot of the tables and the ceiling and the bathroom door. These are all made out of reclaimed materials. So green was being smart with the materials that were around us as well. So, and being able to walk to work. Like it takes me 30 seconds to get to work.
Okay.
And a lot of our staff live in the neighborhood, they live in the community. So these are all things that are important, in terms of building a walkable community, being able to create jobs for folks that live here. So that was all part of our philosophy.
And that was another question I was going to ask, who are your employees and then who are your customers?
Well, like I said, our staff, often a lot of our staff, they definitely live on the South Side. We have several that live, in the neighborhood. Our customers we have the best customers, I have to say. You are our typical customer that has been loyal, followed us for many years, and support us because of the food, because they know our mission, our journey, and so we get folks that come from all over the city as well. And we're one of the few. I think we're one of the few restaurants on the South Side that draws a diverse crowd from all over the city, and we're very, very proud of that. Restaurants have a life cycle. I don't care how good a restaurant can be, how well it's executed. Most restaurants fail after the first year, as you mentioned. The numbers are staggering. It's like 80% fail after the first year, 50% after the first 3 years. Like 80% of all restaurants don't make it to 5 years. And so for us, as we just passed our 5-year anniversary in May, there's a lot of reasons why. Sometimes it's lack of sales, but sometimes it's just tiresome. I mean, I'm knocking on 60, and I've been doing this for a long time. I'm at the end of it, and most of the life cycle of most restaurants that are successful is 8 years. So, if we're 5.5 years in, we realize that win, lose, or draw, there's only, another year or two that we'll probably do this. So folks want to experience Majani, they should come.
Oh my goodness! So what are your plans? What are your plans for the future?
So, for me personally, I think about retirement. I think about retirement as a chef, but I'm still interested in owning a restaurant, running a restaurant from an ownership standpoint, not from as a chef. And I think about creating opportunities for the next generation, and creating opportunities for other vegan restaurants to flourish. I'd like to create a vegan village that can bring in a collection of diverse vegan restaurants that can showcase everything from Italian to Thai to African and soul food, and just with pizza, all these things that you can get under one roof, so that you can really showcase the diversity of veganism under one roof, and then you have a stronger voice to advocate to the city and the South Side, all the things that are possible for your wellness. So this is what my next goal is, to create a vegan village. So.
Wow. Now what is your exact address? Because I know where you are. What is your exact address?
We are located at 7167 South Exchange Avenue. We're right at the corner of 72nd and Exchange. A lot of people don't know that we also have our catering kitchen at 7261, and we're opening up a juice bar and our studio at 7265 and 7267 respectively on Exchange Avenue. So.
Oh, when is that coming?
So the juice bar will be in hopefully sometime in January or February.
Okay.
And the studio right behind that. So by the springtime, those should both be opened up. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm going to bring one of our board members that's been sitting here listening, Doris.
Hi, Mr. Manuel. How are you?
Okay, Doris sitting
How you
here
doing,
listening
Doris?
to us.
Fine.
And let Doris have a few words before we end this interview. But it's just been wonderful talking to you for taking your time, because I know
Yep.
it's your bedtime.
Well, Mr. Emmanuel, just a beautiful, beautiful story. But I have one question. Do you cater to homes?
We do cater. We cater all the time. This is actually busy time of the year for us in regarding catering and getting ready for all our Thanksgiving orders.
Mm.
Day before Thanksgiving is probably the single busiest day of the year for us. But we do cater. We'll cater. You know, we've catered probably the biggest party we've ever catered for was 500 people. So, but our sweet spot is 25 to 50 folks, and we cater all the time.
Now, you mentioned this diversity vegetarian village. Is that going to be on the south side of Chicago? Are you planning to do something?
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. If we can pull it off, yes, absolutely on the south side of Chicago. I'm looking at at a project on Stony Island.
Oh.
So that is my goal. That is always my goal to be.
You know, are you familiar? I think it's the Piccolo restaurant here in Hyde Park. You know what I'm talking about? The Piccolo right across from over by Walgreens. You know, they're closing. So I was thinking that could be a good spot for him to open up over there. You should look into it. You should look into it.
Yeah.
You know, our plan for expansion has always been to do it through franchise.
Oh, okay.
And so we would certainly entertain that if there was someone who wanted to have a Majani franchise. We should be ready for franchising sometime in 2023. We have sufficient data, I think, to show that we can be in the community and be successful. And
Well, check that place out. Is it
yes, ma'am.
okay? Or right
Yes,
around
ma'am.
across from right near the post office and the
Yeah.
Walgreens store. You know.
Yeah, I get my shoes from
Right, Wesley.
From
Wesley.
He's
Yeah.
right down from Wesley.
Yeah.
I read that yesterday, and then I saw it
Yeah.
on the internet today. So check out that place. It'll be a nice place for you to open up.
I will do that.
Well, your story is absolutely wonderful. It was just really delightful listening to how you got started. Just a beautiful story. Thank you for being on our show.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you. And thank you so much for taking this time. And
No problem.
we're going to say goodnight.
All right, guys.
Good night.